Hello, welcome to the Christina Hardy podcast. I'm Christina and today is episode 1. Please subscribe to this and keep listening if you are interested in content for ADHD, late diagnosed female ADHD, if you want help decluttering and organising your home, if you want to be able to learn techniques to calm your brain and to reduce the overwhelm and reduce all the spinniness and make projects not seem so ridiculous, please subscribe and follow for lots of future sessions. If there is anything particular you would like me to talk about in the future, please whack that in the comments below or on any of my sites. Today's session. Yesterday was the summer solace, which is the longest hours of daylight in the UK. In fact, it is nearly up to 17 hours of daylight of the 24. Now, those extra hours of daylight are doing something quite sizable within your neurochemistry and within your brain. So light absorbed through the skin, and it can turn into vitamin D if you have enough of other items in your body. But also, I think we take for granted in the UK how much extremes we get when it comes to the change of how many hours of daylight we get in the summer to the winter. I first realised this when my friend who I met when I lived in Thailand came over with his family. And I just check, does your little lad have a bedtime, or have you just done it as when the sun goes down, then it's bedtime? And he was like, well, when the sun goes down. Okay, I'm like, you've probably got 4 months to change this, because right now is winter, gets dark really early. But as soon as like May comes along and it creeps longer, and especially in the middle of summer, you're not going to get him to bed if he thinks he's not going to bed till the sun goes down. So that's, I think, the first time I realised quite how extreme it was. Thailand has a 12-hour window. It is like a 6:30-ish roughly all year. And I must admit, it was fairly more stabling to live in a country that has kind of a 12-hour window of darkness and lightness, and that it didn't change. It kind of meant that I didn't overly notice being more tired in the winter, or their cold season, they don't really have winter, but the colder weather, I didn't notice anywhere near as much tiredness as I do here. And I didn't notice that, like, you have waves, so obviously sunlight can massively trigger a boom in energy, but that can come with costs, so you have both clauses. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at the ADHD brain and light, and let's see how we can use this to work out what's better to manage our energy, to work out how we can get some kind of communication going with our body, and how we can use it to better achieve our goals and work through our tasks. If you're constantly doing things and you're running on a cycle where you're going for all the hours of daylight, you are going to struggle with your energy when it comes to the summer months. So ADHD brains and light. So sunlight is probably one of the few free dopamine regulating tools. So it really helps you if you can do it. If you can get up and within half an hour, maybe an hour of getting up, go outside and absorb the sunlight through your eyes. It does mean I love my sunglasses because my eyes do not like bright lights. They've always never been a fan of really bright lights, and I've had laser eye surgery, so I have to be more careful of bright lights since then. But if you can go out on a bright day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of actual sunlight absorbed in through your eyes as well, this has an impact on triggering your dopamine to go through your system, and it also triggers your sleep and circadian rhythm. If it's not sunny, you kind of just need a bit longer. You'll still absorb it through, even if it's cloudy and overcast. Don't make any of those things trigger any less. It takes a bit longer to get into your system. It also triggers like a kind of that innate drive that you have inside that makes you want to all of a sudden go, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, which can kind of a complete chaos it really helps to kind of slow those things down. Like when it's summer, I try a little bit more and focus in my plans on what am I aiming for at the minute? What do I need to do with it? And then leave myself some room, because I know that I'm not going to try and perfect myself to do only that exact things on my list, because I will get distracted and do other things. But I've tried to do it as a right. So I've left some room in, some like wiggle room into my week of so when it's really sunny and I want to go and do the garden, I'm going to go do the garden. I'm not going to fight myself and feel disappointed that I haven't had time to do those things, because I've left a bit of wiggle room into my week where I can go a bit rogue and be like, it's really sunny, I want to just go and sit in the sun, make myself a drink, or lie in the hammock and regulate myself by rocking around. That's probably the best purchase I ever made without having any idea I was neurodivergent at all. When you have ADHD and some of the other neurodiverse disorders, you kind of can make it a bit more of a struggle to initiate a task, which is why I aim not to fill my day completely filled with everything, especially the sunnier and nicer it is, because I know that after a certain point I will have had enough. Like, humans generally work with a circadian rhythm. So a circadian rhythm is it's intrinsic. There is nothing we can kind of do to stop it being there or to amend it. However, it also helps. Your circadian rhythm is what helps you fall asleep. Now, ADHD is a bit of a challenge because there is a very large link between sleep disturbances and neurodivergence. I think they say about 70% of neurodivergent people will have sleep issues. Now, I never class myself as having sleep issues because I've always run my battery fairly on max, which means by the time I get to bed, I sleep very quickly. However, when I looked at it more, is the more off kilter I am with managing my ADHD, managing everything else on my plate, dealing with like overwhelm and stress and all of that conundrum, then I might fall asleep quickly, but I'll probably wake up quite a few times. And I don't think I ever really registered that comes into the classification of sleep disturbances. I know when I was younger, I could get out of bed. This is it's for the older generation, because we used to have phones that were connected to a cable. And so I would get out of bed, could answer the phone, should be the other side of the room, and then have no memory of the conversation I would have on the phone, and then whinge at the person the next day because they didn't ring me. You said you were ringing me, you haven't rang me. And then they were like, I did ring you, okay. And you used to, back in the day, go 1471. And I was like, oh, did ring me at that time. That's weird, because I have no memory of conversating with him at all. And so our ADHD brain can be a bit wired for later nights. Now the summer can really bring this in quite significantly, because you can be, well, it's so light, it doesn't necessarily register how late it is. So you can be busy doing one thing, or you'll go and get that, you'll get the kids, you'll go there, you'll go and do another task, I'll put some dinner on, I'll do this, and then you look at your watch and be like, it's like 8:30, I haven't walked the dog, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. And these are things I have to do before I've got my bag ready for the next day. These are things I have to do before I go to sleep. And so you end up creating yourself like way later bedtimes than you'd like. Now, obviously, chemical-wise, there has been some data that says that ADHD people can struggle with delayed sleep-wake timing, which I was like, yeah, that's very good English. But it's basically like, you sleep up, you take a bit longer to come round. I do know the more worn out I am, the more I can take longer to wake up to a point where I can actually get out of bed. But it also means that by that, they mean that your melatonin onset is later. So your melatonin doesn't come and set off so early. It can be delayed for neurodivergent adults and neurodivergent children. I found some data saying 45 minutes in children and 90 minutes in adults comparative to neurotypical people, but there wasn't that much data on it, so I'd still be a bit reluctant that those are set numbers. Obviously that increases the objective of having challenges with your circadian rhythm if your melatonin isn't starting later. And being as the fact of darkness kind of triggers melatonin more, so you have to get up and see some light, and that starts your loop going, and then so many hours later you'll have a bit more melatonin. However, if you don't do anything with it, that can be even pushed back even later, or it can just dissipate because you look outside and your brain goes, it's lovely daylight, it must not be that late, I'm fine. And then you end up with the delay of, well, the darkness doesn't really hit till like 10:30, 11 o'clock. No, it takes a while for my body temperature to kind of chill down and my brain to be slowing down enough that it wants some sleep. Sometimes it's just too tired and it goes to sleep quick, but it does mean that the quality of sleep I get won't be as good. And for people who have then got such a late bedtime because they're already 90 minutes behind before the darkness, you push those things together, that can end up being really light. And I suppose the worst thing is you then go, shall I start doing some kind of task? Shall I do this? So it's not really, the daylight outside is not telling your brain to be like, yay, let's get ready for sleep and get ready for bed. When you add this with a bit of a challenge of time blindness, which I didn't really think I had time blindness. However, when I've been doing different tasks for my business and I've been trying to estimate how long it will take me to do that task or how long it will take me to do another task, really hard for me to do because I'm like, well, it shouldn't take that long. It takes hours. And then other things I think they will take ages, and that doesn't actually take ages. You just need to start that activity, and it's just like changing the bed. I always think it'll take ages, but actually if you just start, it doesn't actually take that long to do the whole thing. It's just the brain tells you it does. Definitely does. No, it doesn't. I mean, does it take you a long time, or do your brain just tells you it does? It also depends if you like the activity or not. Like, and probably unusual for ADHD, I like washing clothes. I love my laundry room more than anything in the world because it does mean that, like in the winter, I can just do the washi, put it out, and then it can chill until I'm ready to put it in. The sunny day is a bit harder because I'm like, no, I feel like I've got to put it outside, which means then I've got to know that I can get it in and remember to get it in. Kind of adds an extra loop. But I have gone off on a tangent. So, coming back to my point, time blindness and the long summer days can kind of mean we get a bit lost and we either start big tasks really late at night and then run into doing them halfway and get stuck, which is probably a painful thing because our brain doesn't like to go back into an activity that we were halfway through. If I'm doing decluttering with people and I'm doing certain sections and we're going to be short on time, I will always focus that declutter then down to something that we can close, because coming back to something even the next day or 2 weeks later can be really hard. If it's a task that I leave you to do on your own in between sessions, it would literally be a task where I'm like, okay, put some TV on, go through these. You can like go through your paperwork and go, what age is it? Okay, that's above a certain age. I don't need to keep that anymore. That can go in the shred pile. But in itself, it's an entire task. It is not half a task that we half started, because for some reason our brains do not like to go back into something that was halfway done, or we just can't remember where we stopped and what the kind of flow is gone. And because it takes so long to get back into the flow, you tend to be losing that. It also falls into the kind of revenge bedtime procrastination. No idea who came up with that name, but it's something like that. I don't really know, no idea. I have noticed that sometimes I'm like, when you're really overwhelmed and you've probably not had much time in the day for you to do things for yourself, you get to the point eventually where you're like, well, I'm gonna like play this game, or I'm gonna read this. Actually, no, reading fails. I just fall asleep if I try and read something relaxing at bedtime. But I'll generally go, I want to do this for me because I haven't really had the chance in the day that I haven't put to doing something fun. So then I'll just do it, and it'll be like, oh, it's like midnight, 1 o'clock. if I just spent an hour playing a game, why didn't I just go to sleep? I will feel much better tomorrow if I actually went to sleep earlier than if I played my game. It hasn't really given me that, yay, this was for me. No, it wasn't. It kind of just feels like a bit of a waste of time, whereas actually the more you can actually get some sleep, the way better. I'm really hoping you can't hear my dog snoring at this point. Unfortunately, she's getting louder and louder, so I think you may eventually hear her whimpering in the background. She is fine. She is in a dream. She had a big walk this morning, so has now decided to come and nap in the room that I'm in. She makes more noise if I try and shut her out. And so going back, you feel like a loss. Like it's just a bit of a cheek to go to bed early. Like, what's the point? Especially if you've been struggling to fall asleep at that time anyway. But the more sleep you can actually get, there's a good amount of evidence that it makes all of your ADHD symptoms worse, like your impulsivity and your emotional dysregulation, your inattentionness. But generally, in English terms, it means that all my life I've had no sleep or like very little sleep. My body hasn't had time to rest. I am probably not going to be able to take any criticism today. I am not going to be able to deal with kind of waves of emotions that will come through the day. Something will likely trigger me a lot easier if you haven't had any sleep than if you've actually tried to look after yourself and give yourself as much as you can. So with all of that, fairly somewhat depressing and somewhat miserable, we're not. We're going to turn it around and go, right, how can we make summer work for us? So we know that I can get more dopamine through the sunlight. That's free. There's not that many options where it's free. So I'm going to try and use that. And also the longer days means you may be active for a little bit longer. You do need to be mindful if you're going to be active for longer. If you have lots of other comorbidities with ADHD and you have other diagnoses that affect your energy levels, that you are going to have to actively remind yourself to take a break, to make sure you're drinking as much fluid as you can. That's a different episode that will be later in the season, because me and drinking have always had a fun relationship. I'm not talking about alcohol, I'm talking about fluid in general. Water, any fluid. Yeah, we're going to try and make this work for us. So if we have something that's really been paralyzing us and really been shutting us down when we try and get to it, whether it is clearing out the shed because it keeps raining, so if I clear out the shed and I'm halfway through and it rains, then I'm done. So we go back and we go, right, okay, I'm going to start with this one corner. Today's a nice day. I'm going to use the sunshine and a nice day and the fact that I've got sunlight for a bit longer to go through that project. I'm going to make sure I've had some lunch and a big drink, and I'm going to have something with me to keep drinking. I'm going to work on that area. I'm going to not try and tackle the whole thing in the one go. I'm going to go, right, this section, we will go through it, we will ask ourselves some questions, and we will work through this section. If you do manage to absorb vitamin D, I would say vitamin D is weird. Vitamin D absorbs in your neck and your arms. So if you are like me, and most of the time a cold bunny, and have got everything hidden, you will need at some point let those things out to sunlight, or find sunlight somewhere else that can go into your arms and your neck, because that's where we mostly absorb vitamin D. But that vitamin D can massively help your mood, your serotonin levels. It can just not necessarily increase the volume power, but make sure it keeps going around longer in your system. The only thing you do have to be aware of, so with all of those things, if you add in ADHD, unstructured time, sensory overload, so with everything being everywhere, like you go, right, okay, I'm going to deal with that section that has been overloading me, but I'm just going to go at it like a bull at a gate, you may not do so well. With the increase in heat, and this can mean your attention is much shorter and your impulsivity. So if you're trying to sort through something and there's meant to be like some logic to it, like, right, I want to get through what's in the shed. I've not used it for a while, but as we know, if we don't see anything with ADHD, we don't remember we have it. However, unlike a lot of people, when we do see it, we are a lot more likely to then use it and then know it's there. So the whole throw it out after 6 months doesn't really apply, because we do a lot more waves when it comes to using different things that we've bought in the past. So We just need to make sure when we're doing the summer, we can get more restless. I get a bit more restless. I have like two extremes. I either get stuck in the hammock or I get in the hammock for 10 minutes and then I'm a bit like, yeah, this isn't working. I need to do something else. So we need to be aware. I need to listen to our brains and to work through it way more responsibly, or way more kind of looking after ourselves a bit more than we perhaps do. Think of it as looking after somebody else. I feel like most ADHD people are far better than looking after other people than they are to look after themselves. If you were caring for an animal or caring for another person, you probably wouldn't do what you would do to yourself in your brain. You wouldn't say those things. You wouldn't expect that level of completion in one go. You would just give them a bit of slack and give them a bit of freedom. But bear in point with this is, if you can want to see the massive positive points of the extra sunshine, let's compare if I'm going for January, where it's shorter days, it's reduced serotonin a bit because there isn't the look outside and sunshine. Obviously England's a bit difficult because sometimes it's sunshine, sometimes it's rain, sometimes it's thunderstorms. You don't know what you're going to get more than a few days in advance because it likes to just do a dice of what you're getting. This year so far, been quite nice. We are set for a heat wave this week. That should be interesting. I like heat, but I'm well aware I am an unusual ADHD person for liking heat. The next episode 2 podcast will be based on ADHD and heat and surviving really hot weather and things to do to make it easier. Things that you will probably self-sabotage yourself and think, that's a good idea. No, don't do it. I'll give you some of those on the next episode if you stay tuned to the next one. If you also think about the winter, I feel like January, like New Year, New You, purely gets bought in because your energy and your mood is like through the floor. So they've got to think of something to boost you up. So they came up with the idea of, oh, it's January now. Everything's a new slate, fresh. We can let go of all the stuff we did before. You're neurodivergent. You're probably not going to let go of the stuff you've done before. It's very hard to get all that out your brain. It's possible, but it takes work to move those things out. So let's use the summer to really try and take on a big project. I have given myself a bit of a big project for this year, or for the summer really, because it involves replacing the roof of the little outbuilding that I have outside. In order to do that, it will have to probably be gutted. I mean, half of it, there's a big hole in it. It's a bit of it's a very large renovation project, that particular house. It's quite little and it's it's not like loads of floors up, but it's going to need some big work and some big learning curves with it. But I decided that will be my goal for the summer. In order to do such a massive project like that though, I am going to break it down into section by section. The first section is a challenge because it's clearing all of the vegetation from around all of the space. Now I have already cleared it several times, but due to the joy of weeds and the beautiful rain sun, well, not much rain, but a dribble, some more sunshine, it seems to grow itself beautifully. And with the reduction in putting weed killer in the general area outside, I'm sure that the weeds in my garden have increased in capacity even more. But in order to make that project doable, I am going to break it into very small sections, and that will be my immense summer project. So hopefully by the winter time, I can come on here and be like, yay, would you like a tour of probably the outside of it, because the inside needs the wall, all the plaster coming off the walls, a little bit of acro going in and a bit of jigging of some of the walls moved a bit. So it'll be just the outside to start with. One section at a time though. I'm okay with that being a slow project, but I'm going to try and use the summer energy to beast that project through. So let's do some takeaways from today's podcast and do a bit of a review. So let's take light in intentionally. Let's not see the heat and blinding sunshine as absolutely horrific, but let's try and be like, right, I am going to have my morning cup of tea or my morning drink, my morning coffee, and I'm going to sit outside or I'm going to go for a walk, within, like, if I say within half an hour of waking up, that means it'll probably be within an hour. So I always give myself those leeway ones. Within an hour of waking up, just for 10, 15 minutes. If it's really sunny, I can get away with 5 minutes, but if it's sunnier, I'll probably want to sit there longer. And I can plan my day out a little bit, see which bits on my task list really pull me, and don't go crazy with adding 1,000 things to the list. And so I'll do it with intention instead of accidentally trying to get a bit of sunlight here and there. I'll try and give myself a bit of a neurological maintenance rather than this is for my health. I'll sell it as, right, I need to get my brain chemistry working for me. I'm going to do that 5 minutes in the morning outside, 10 minutes in the morning, sat having a drink. So getting our dopamine in bite-sized chunks from other than the sunlight. If you have a big project that you're working on or a big goal that you've had a bit of help to break down and you're going to just work on, like, if any of them is a decluttering, my decluttering goals are, when I write my list, I think today I had more big things on, so I haven't got as much on there, but I might write one surface or one drawer, one box. I will go through and see if in different rooms I'll have little charity boxes, if it means that I combine them all together and then I've got one full one. Cool, that's one full one. I'll try and coincide that with going past the charity shop and take it in. Sometimes I'll give myself a set goal of just taking that bag to the charity shop, because you can go, I'll put it in the car, but then you just end up with a bit of like a doom car thing going on where you've gone, I'll just put it there. No, but now I've not had time, and whenever I think of it, the shop's closed. In the evening, I try and make an effort now to shut the curtains a little bit earlier, even if it is light. Sometimes we don't, well, at the minute it's really hot, so we're leaving them closed most of the time, but I'll try and shut it a bit earlier, and I'll try and turn off any of like above headlights, and I'll just have some lamps or something that means the lights are not overhead. So my brain goes, lights have gone down, it must be getting late. When your lights are above you, they tend to think that your brain is thinking, must be like middle of the day because the sun is still up in the sky. Our brain is still a bit like Neo, or is it Homo sapien? So it's still in that Neo times where it thinks, I'm responding to normal daylight. And with that aim, I've never managed to ever give myself some kind of shutdown for sleep. So I'll do that and then I'll go to sleep. My fella's like, I've got to make a tea. Probably won't even drink it. He drinks it mostly in the morning after. But I think it's just so he's got to drink if he wakes up, he can drink it. But I started to try and add a few extra bits. In order to remember, I've had to make most of them convenient. So I'll have a little tub on my bedside table with face creams in. And then I'll try and always bring either my bottle, because then I don't cover myself in it if I'm trying to drink in the night, or I have a little like Diet Coke fridge upstairs that has water in it. I will try and bring one of those to bed so that I have a drink, because I don't drink enough. I know that I need to encourage my brain to take the fluid when it is wanting it, rather than trying to force myself into having it at a later point. I would love to say thank you ever so much for tuning into this episode. Please catch the next episode soon. I am hopefully going to drop the first 5 episodes quite quickly, and then I will be putting out 1 new episode a week. If you want to know when the next new episode comes out, if you sign up for my newsletter, every week when my newsletter comes out, it will be telling you what is on the podcast, and it will have a link to dive straight onto it to make it easier for you. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you for listening. Speak to you soon.